People called him the Argentinian Nostradamus and one of the most important clairvoyants who ever lived. His name was Benjamin Solari Parravicini, an artist born in 1898 whose life reads like a surrealist masterpiece. From childhood tales of playing with angels and fairies to becoming a celebrated painter and sculptor, his works mixed art and prophecy, and his over 1,000 drawings gave us eerily accurate glimpses into the future, including the falling of the Twin Towers. Friends, welcome to the Mysteries of Latin America podcast, where we're in the second season of telling you the tales of the mysteries, legends, and unsolved mysteries of North, Central, and South America and the Caribbean for the whole world to hear. My name is Andrew Colon, your host, and in this episode we'll tell you about the man many people compare with Nostradamus and whose art has continued to accurately tell us about our future. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast however you're listening to us on Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Apple and iTunes, Amazon, and many more. When in doubt, just Google the Mysteries of Latin America and we should come up in there somewhere. Now let's get to it. Benjamin Solari Parravicini was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina, into a well-to-do aristocratic family just before the turn of the 20th century in 1898. As a child, a young Benjamin claimed to see and play with a guardian angel, fairies, and los duendes, mythical figures in Argentina that were much like elves or goblins. His father was a prominent psychiatrist, and he was concerned about his son's unusual experiences, and he had his son undergo a series of physical and mental tests, but they revealed no signs of illness, physical or otherwise. It might be worth noting that not long after these tests, Benjamin made his first prediction, foreseeing a war erupting in what he referred to as 14. That would be 1914, and it would be World War I. He was just 16 years old. Young Benjamin's artistic talents began to emerge at an early age, with a natural inclination towards drawing and painting, showcasing a unique, and as you can figure, imaginative style. He went on to study at the National School of Fine Arts in Buenos Aires, where he developed a distinctive style, heavily characterized by symbolism and symbolic elements. From the 1930s to the 1970s, he worked and exhibited widely and became a famous artist. One of his fans was the president of Argentina, Marcelo T. de Alvear, and so was King Albert of Belgium. These accolades, along with a talent for teaching and leadership, led to different positions as an art professor and jobs in the public art world in Argentina at the time. But what many people didn't know is that during this time, the Nostradamus of Argentina was drawing and painting feverishly, producing mind-blowing amounts of cryptic line drawings he called psychographies, drawings alluding to things that hadn't happened yet, with notes and script that sometimes only he could decipher. Solari said that he was influenced to make these drawings by his guardian angel, Fray José de Aragon, an 18th century Spanish Catholic missionary who never set foot in Argentina, and other entities without physical form. And according to the legions of people who follow his work, and we'll get to that group in a little bit, Benjamin Solari foretold the following scenarios often decades before they happened. The space race, and that the first creature in space would be a dog, satellite communications, in vitro fertilization, the arrival of Fidel Castro and Che Guevara to Cuba and the revolution, the JFK assassination, the war in the Falkland Islands near Argentina, and the fall of Argentina's military dictatorship, the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the resignation of Pope Benedict and the election of Argentinian Pope Francisco, the fall of the Twin Towers in 9/11, and the election of Javier Gerardo Milei as president of Argentina, which just happened this past December 2023, and many, many more. Many people believe this is true. In fact, there's a Facebook page devoted to his artwork and predictions with over 20,000 followers. And according to the curator of the page, what we know is just the tip of the prophetic iceberg. But what do the skeptics say? While some followers believe in his predictions and consider him a visionary, not everyone sees him as the Oracle of Buenos Aires. Critics say that Solari's predictions are vague and open to interpretation, and that people find connections to events after those events have happened, saying his predictions are more like post-dictions instead of having genuine foresight. Skeptics also say that there's no scientific basis for his abilities, and that without a systematic and verifiable method for making predictions, the claims are just that, and that it's like looking for shapes in the cloud. Solari's predictions are often presented in a symbolic and metaphorical language, which allows for a wide range of interpretations. Skeptics argue that these symbols can be applied to multiple events, making the predictions less specific and less reliable. Critics also say that Solari's followers selectively focus on the predictions that match actual things that have happened while ignoring those that haven't. Of course, his followers have countered back with the argument, well, they haven't happened. Yet. But let's talk about a couple of drawings in particular. Solari called one Humanity Exhausted. It was a drawing of a cityscape with a towering mushroom cloud rising into the sky, with intricate patterns and symbols drawn into the cloud. Around the cloud are distorted buildings and humans with expressions of shock and fear, and broken chains and shattered symbols of power. This drawing was made in 1939, and people say it was a foreshadowing of the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in World War II. Nuclear fission had just been discovered by December of 1939, but it hadn't been widely discussed outside of scientific or military circles. And then another one of his psychographies had this cryptic inscription: Cuba, ideal for tourists, will be hit by disarray. It will belong to the bear, and the bear will remain its master for 5 time periods. Then a cluster of surprises will astonish it. There will be blood, blood and fire, fire and death, and then nothing. He wrote this in 1936. The first attacks of the Cuban Revolution happened in 1953. And if foreseeing the future wasn't enough, there were the aliens. In a 1968 interview, Solari said he had an experience with extraterrestrial beings he called astronavegos, or star travelers. In the center of the city of Buenos Aires, during a cold, foggy night, he and a friend came across an individual of unusual appearance, tall, very light-skinned, and with big round eyes, with no eyelids. The being made gestures for them to head to the Diagonal, a diagonal avenue there, heading towards La Casa de Gobierno, the official residence of the president of Argentina. They refused and got away from the visitor. Days later, this time alone, this man found Solari again in the early morning hours after a night at the theater. This time, Solari said he'd lost consciousness, and when he woke up, he said he was inside a spaceship, where 2 beings greeted him warmly by putting their hands on his shoulder. They spoke to him telepathically, recognizing his telepathic ability as well, saying they were from Venus, and that from there they observed our activities here on Earth and had their eye on us. After he was returned to the Earth, he said he was almost catatonic for 4 days, but that he recovered. Benjamin Solari Parravicini died in December of 1974. He left behind a trove of artwork, writing, and controversy that we're still sifting through 50 years later. What he also left behind is a legacy rooted in the mystery surrounding his predictions. Enthusiasts and followers believe that his psychographies foresaw significant global events, like the development of nuclear weapons, long before they occurred. Despite the skepticism surrounding the accuracy of his predictions, Solari's legacy reinforces the idea that art, spirituality, and our fascination with the unknown will continue. Whether he was a true visionary or a curious artistic mind with a gift for creative exaggeration, Benjamin Solari Parravicini's work and life will continue to spark discussion and debate with those of us who are intrigued by the mysteries of the human mind and how it's connected to how history unfolds. And this is why we told his story on the Mysteries of Latin America podcast. Make sure to follow, share, and subscribe to the podcast, whether it's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple and iTunes, iHeartRadio, or the other 10 or so places you can hear us. And make sure you join us next week for another episode telling the world about some of the compelling myths, legends, and mysteries of North, Central, and South America and the Caribbean. I'm Andrew Colon. Adios.